Hey, Makota. I'm going to start a chapter book with you guys, and I'll try and do different segments for you so you'll have different chapters to listen to on a daily basis. Um, Hope you guys are having a good breakaway with your family, and I miss having time with you in my classroom. The story that I'm going to start with today is called My Fox Ate My Homework by David Blaise. Friday morning. My teeth clicked and clacked when I stepped into my new school. Goosebumps popped up all over my arms like hot air balloons. I wasn't nervous, just cold. I knew I'd never wear shorts and a t-shirt there again. Okay, I was a little nervous. Come on in, the sixth grade English teacher said when I stepped into her classroom. She was standing in front of a chalkboard with the name Miss Cox written across the top of it. She was older than any of the teachers I had in the city, and she had a high-pitched twang in her voice that made me shudder. Don't be shy. She waved for me to come to her desk. 20 or 30 kids stared at me from their seats. My hands felt sweaty. Can you dance? One of the girls shouted at me. I felt ashamed to shake my head no. I did the chicken dance once at a birthday party. I knew that didn't count. Class, the teacher said, wrapping an arm around my shoulders. I'd like to introduce you to Jonah Johnson. Joe, I said right away. I didn't like being called Jonah. I didn't expect anyone to understand, but I didn't want to feel like a kid again. Miss Cox chuckled. Of course, Joe. Whatever you prefer. She motioned toward the class. Go ahead and find a seat. We only have a few minutes left. Some kid in a tank top jumped out of his seat and shouted, He has to sing the song. I had no idea what he was talking about. My mom begged me not to sing in public after she heard me singing in the shower one day. Miss Cox shook her head and told the other kid to sit down. This is Joe's first day, and he doesn't know the rules yet. I think we can give him a pass. This one time, she winked at me. Anyone who's late has to sing a song in front of the class. We'll teach it to you later, Joe. Besides, I'm sure you have a good reason for being late on your first day. I had a really good reason. It was Friday, and I didn't want to be there at all. Why couldn't my mom let me start this school on Monday like everyone else? She had to pry me out of my bedroom, kicking and screaming. Maybe that's not completely true, but it sure felt that way. I walked through the rows of desks to the back of the room. I didn't want to sit near the front because that is where you get asked all the questions. Not here, some big kid with wavy blonde hair growled at me before I could sit in the only open seat. He was so big, he looked like he was supposed to be in the 9th grade. He stared at the desk when he spoke. This seat is reserved. The desk had dust on it, so I knew no one had sat there in a long time. I'll find another seat next week. Let me sit here for now. Maybe I didn't make myself clear, Jonah, he hissed. This seat is reserved, Jonah. My face felt hot when he called me that name twice. It's Joe, I reminded him. Call me Joe. He stood straight up, kicked his chair back, and waved a fist at me. I gulped. He was taller. He was the tallest 6th grader I'd ever seen. He was wearing a gray t-shirt and gray shorts. Miss Cox appeared by my side out of nowhere. Do we have a problem here, Shane? The kid snickered, shook his head, and sat back down. Miss Cox took a deep breath and motioned for me to follow her. She led me right back to the front row of desks and an open seat. I had been there for less than 5 minutes and I was already embarrassed out of my mind. It was going to be a long day. Don't forget about the paper due on Monday morning, Miss Cox said to the room. I want to see 3 paragraphs about your best friend. I'll be grading for grammar, punctuation, and speech. I raised my hand. Speech? Miss Cox smiled. Yes, Joe. In this class, we work on presentation skills. Anything you write, you say in front of this class. She lowered her voice. I know it's short notice, but is there something you can do by Monday? I heard you're a writer. I didn't have any problem with writing 3 paragraphs. I was a writer for my other school's newsletter, but making a speech in front of the class, I gulped. I've never done that before. I looked up at Miss Cox and said the only thing I could say to save myself from more embarrassment, sure, no problem. The class bell rang and everyone jumped out of their seats. There was so much noise and talking in the room, I couldn't concentrate on how scared I was about Monday morning. I knew I shouldn't have started this school on Friday. I mean, who starts school on Friday? Are you okay? The girl next to me asked. She had 2 ponytails and big dimples. I stood up and slung my backpack over my shoulder. I don't know yet. She chuckled and stood next to me with a huge smile. My name's Melissa. I pulled my new class schedule out of my backpack. Do you know where room 104 is? She snatched the paper out of my hand and headed toward the door. Yeah, that's my next class too. Follow me. At least there was one friendly person at this school. She had a bit of a twang in her voice, but not as bad as Miss Cox. I have to get used to it in this country. Where are you from? Melissa asked when we walked into the hall. Orlando, I said proudly. She had to be impressed with a city boy like me coming into this small country town in Alabama. She smiled and kept walking. I felt obligated to ask her some questions back. I wasn't a big talker, but I knew most kids liked talking about themselves. Melissa was the only person willing to be my friend so far. I couldn't risk losing that. Where are you from? She stopped in front of room 104, looked directly into my eyes, and said, I came from my mama. She burst out laughing. She didn't stop laughing, and it was so contagious I couldn't help but laugh with her. The laughing stopped when Shane appeared by my side. I'm not short, but he was at least 4 inches taller than me. He was trouble. I couldn't show him any fear. We need to talk, he blurted out. He didn't look angry like before. I didn't know how much I could trust him, and I didn't know how much time there was until the next class started. I'll only take a minute, he pleaded. I glanced at Melissa. She shrugged her shoulders and walked into the classroom. I'll save you a seat, she promised. I looked back up at Shane. It's fun to mess with the new kid. I don't want any trouble. Shane frowned like he was hurt. I'm sorry about earlier, he confessed. I wasn't sure how to respond. All I could say was, oh, okay. He smiled for the first time and punched my shoulder playfully. So, you're a writer? This was going a lot better than I expected. It wouldn't be hard making friends after all. I dabble here and there, I proclaimed. I won an award at my other school. Shane's eyes got big. That's awesome, he shouted. Another kid wearing a tank top joined us. His hair was cut like a sailor's. It took me a minute to realize he was the kid from Miss Cox's class who had tried to make me sing a song. Hey, Joe, Shane said to me. This is my best friend, Sam. They pounded fists. Isn't it funny that Miss Cox wants us to write a paper about our best friends? My stomach churned. I had a bad feeling this wasn't going so well after all. Sam and I grew up together, Shane continued. We liked to go fishing and hunting. I tried to step backwards towards the classroom. I already knew what he was going to ask me. Say, Shane said to me, you're a writer and we're friends now, right? He followed my every step I took. I was pretty sure we weren't friends. He reached out and grabbed my shirt collar with one hand. Where are you going? He tightened his grip. I'm going to need you to write that paper for me, Jonah. I love to write, but not under threat and not for someone else. My name is Joe. Shane and Sam both snickered as he released my shirt and straightened it out. This is going to be a long year for you if you don't write it, and you'll be very, very sorry. He shoved me into the room. I stumbled and fell flat on my back. Shane towered over me, smirked, and said, "Make the right decision." The two bullies high-fived each other and disappeared down the hall. The teachers were monitoring the halls, and none of them saw what happened. I stared up at the ceiling and wished I was invisible. "Are you okay?" Melissa asked after I got up and sat next to her. "Shane is a big bully. If you give him what he wants, he'll never leave you alone." She was right, but to be honest, I was scared to death of that big kid. I didn't know yet my whole world would be turned upside down after school that day, but I knew right then and there what choice I would make about writing Shane's paper. And that's all for this time, kiddos. We'll catch up next.